Wow. That's fantastic. That's incredible. Hey, welcome everyone. We're here with another edition of Extraordinary People. A few weeks ago, we had Lois Schroff, a wonderful person herself, and I think she is joining us on the show and watching it with us. A big hug to her. Today we're celebrating yet another extraordinary person, Nancy Jewel Poer. She is the founder of Rudolph Steiner College, Cedar Springs Waldorf School. She is an artist, a writer, a videographer, a publisher. She holds retreats and workshops at her place in California. She is a pilot, has built her own planes, skydives, of course. She is a teacher, a mentor, a protector of children. She is a true cowgirl, a mother, a grandmother, and a great grandmother. Needless to say, an extraordinary woman all around, and I'm so honored to have her with us today. Nancy, how are you? And by the way, happy belated birthday.
It's only belated by a day, Frank,
A day, yesterday,
yesterday.
and 93. My goodness. That's incredible.
I didn't expect to be here, but here I am.
But here you are.
And here I am, and just extraordinarily grateful to have this opportunity to connect with lots of people in lots of places, and I've just been. My name's Nancy Poer, but I have been so richly blessed in life with friends and colleagues and work. Yeah, it's been awesome.
And you're in Pleasantville, which
No,
is
Placerville.
Placerville. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's like a Pleasantville. So, and that's just east of Sacramento.
It is.
And do you live on a farm ranch?
We live at White Feather Ranch, which is about an hour east of Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I have been here for 35 years, and he's on the other side now. And our son and others, family, built our home here, built our beautiful barn that we've shared with countless people over the years. And of course, you said, at least I'm a threshold lady. I work with the thresholds of birth and death, and so I'm out here because I've almost crossed the threshold a couple times in the last year or so, and so I can get out onto my deck, and I want you to see the threshold behind me. Can you see that?
Yes.
And
that's
this is light root, which is a magnificent root plant that Rudolf Steiner, which of course joins you and I, Frank, as people who our lives have been so influenced by this amazing man behind Waldorf education and beautiful agriculture and so much more. So anyway, he tells us that light root is a particularly powerful plant for bringing in the sunlight and metabolizing the healing powers of the sun.
mm-hmm.
So it's something I hope everybody can grow. And then in this case, it just came and grew up one side and down the other because it's a vine. It's called Chinese yam. And then I wanted to show you that just like a fairy tale, I get for today to have a white rose over there. And then there's a red rose over here. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Right behind. So, greetings from the threshold.
So there's a little bit of a feedback somewhere.
Is it?
No, I guess not. So In my introduction, I read that
Yeah.
because there's no way I was going to remember. I mean, I wrote it down. There's no way I could remember all these things. And matter of fact, I forgot some very important ones, which was you're also a farmer, yeah, an avid gardener, and also your threshold work, which
That's
is so important. I don't know how I forgot that because that is that is like something that actually connects us
mm-hmm.
in a way because my mother took a course from you back in the day. And she practiced it as well on her grandmother, and we practiced it on her as well when she passed away.
Yeah.
So in that respect, that's kind of how I'm really kind of connected with you, and how I got a hold of you through the your book, um, dying through uh, death,
Living into dying.
living into dying. Right, right, very good.
And
So
yeah, so it was wonderful to be able to put that into the world in the early 2000s, because of course there's so much. Everything really is being fear of going of dying,
mhm,
is guaranteed we'll all do. But so this was to help people know they had the right to take care of their loved ones at home, that they could do all that legally, and how much rewarding it was for both the survivors and the what do you want to call it, committee to help usher and send off a loved one into their spiritual return. You could say return to the spirit world. And so that was a big motivation in writing it. And it's become a little classic, you might say, in the home death field.
it has, it
Yeah.
has.
And so it's helped many people realize the holy nature of the threshold, and then how they can respond to it with caring for their loved ones. Not
Right.
for everyone, but obviously the thoughts of what a loved one is going through as they re-enter the spirit world is important stuff.
It is. It's very important. I mean, I truly believe that. And like I said, my mother put it into practice with her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could tell the funny story about that because cops showed up at her house because she because because her brother alerted the cops in Seattle that there is a dead body at my parents' house. And like seven cops showed up at the house, and my mother was blocking them from coming in and saying, "Over my dead body, will you come into this house?" And my father had a bit of a cool head, and he goes, "What? You got to step aside." He opens the door, the cops come rushing. Okay, where's the body? And my dad goes, "Well, it's upstairs." So the cops come in into the, and then they see my grandmother beautifully laying in bed with flowers all around,
Yeah.
um, and it's just a beautiful scene. I mean, my mother did a very wonderful job,
Yeah.
and the cops sort of backed out and came back down the stairs, and they were like, "Oh, we're sorry about this. We're so sorry." And outside, my father was picking up some conversation before they left, and they were going, "God, how beautiful that was. I didn't know people can have their celebrate their dead at their home." And
Yeah.
that's the conversation that the cops were having. But it was kind of amusing. The
Well,
whole thing was.
actually, it was awesome because, obviously both one of your grandmother or your mother probably had a, dramatic flair. Let's put it that.
Oh gosh.
So then this comes around the death. I
Yeah.
described the same thing in my book, and
Yeah.
it was so moving that these people, Malsby and Elsa Kimball, didn't have any children, and so the undertaker panics and sends out his people to pick up the body and take it to the coroner. And they come in, and here's a whole room full of people that are not related. And so they're there to remove this body, right? And so you could, as I say, you can read it in the book. It was just awesome. And then he was an artist. So he was in the studio. And when we finally, after about an hour, said, and someone said, you may not, I will put myself over the casket. We opened the door, and this beautiful young man, the coroner, just visibly, he just said, like that, because he saw all the beauty and the flowers and the artwork and this beautiful casket that my children had made, and all laid out with such reverence. And it was life-changing for him. I mean, then he had to go and call the authorities.
Sure. Yeah, no, it was amusing, but it was now that you say that, it's just it was probably, they took a lot away from that, the police. They
Absolutely.
usually, they're like dead body on the floor, just pick it up and put it on a gurney and off you go. Even my older brother had a problem with it. But he slowly came around. But one more thing I wanted to mention about this was when I went to the funeral home to pick up my mother's ashes, the woman that gave me her ashes was saying, "Oh, did you have her at her home for the 3 days?" I go, "Yeah, gosh, I that's becoming more and more a thing." And I even took a course back in 2000 or something from a woman in California that taught this. And I go, "Oh, isn't that interesting? You probably went to the same course my mother did."
Well, who knows?
Whole world.
Anyway, through death we touch life and renewed life. And so, and I guess you'd say, Frank, we're starting off this with probably some of the big gesture of how can we find the way to face death, which will be inevitable and can be tragic and all of the above, and yet realize the spirit goes on, and that we have choices of how we're going to connect and how we're going to honor and how we're going to. And as an artist, that's one of the things that got me into it. It's the last chapter. It should be as beautiful as you can make it.
And speaking about life and death, you have a very extraordinary life we absolutely want to get to. And you have slide decks you want to show, and I'm eager to get to them.
Okay.
And for you to share your story.
So, can I say a little bit, Frank? I'm hoping that this will be helpful for people, because I've had such a unusual opportunity to live for this long, for one thing, but also to have my life recorded. And as you'll see, as we go into the slides of how, at least hopefully, I'm trying to share how, even in this project, I'm so grateful to you for the chance to have this intense review in order to put it together and realize things about my own intention coming to this planet, being born to the parents and the circumstances I was, so that I could unfold this story that will help show how what I was supposed to be doing was right there. It showed up in childhood. I met the people I needed to meet, the circumstances, the challenges, the hard stuff, the beautiful stuff. And so then I also came, as my daddy said, the drawingest kid he ever saw. So I've left a record, and you'll see why my mother was so zealous about saving it, in my artwork of my coming into life and waking up to the world. And so through these slides will be interspersed the art that I did, and showing how through it that the connections that were going to unfold in life would be there. You might say the the child is father of the man is a phrase, but you could say the expression of the child, the gestures of the child, the out, outgoingness of that child is the mother of the soul. And so when we can have a feeling for what's trying to unfold in this life, and then what's led to my work to try to guard that for all children. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Uh, well, hopefully people can retrospect on their life, which, if connected with anthroposophy and biography work, one can, even if you're not, uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can look back on your life. If you're, well along in your life, which probably most people watching this right now are probably well along in their life. They can hopefully through going through your life, they can retrospect and say, hey, yes,
Uh,
I had a similar experience
it,
to this, and it does it it does connect with what I did in my life
it,
now. So
exactly.
should we get started?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, let me share a screen. Let me share your slides, and when you're ready, just say next, and we'll do that. So um, I will be. Let's see, and here we are, and I will just be over here,
Okay. Thanks, Frank.
over here.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So, community and thresholds. And as I said, it's been a life of striving for spiritual community and adventure, joy, truth, beauty, freedom, and love, something I think all of us long for. And so, this is a threshold to the kindergarten next that my son and I made together when he was 18. And again, next, so we have the angel guarding the children, something all of us as adults, whether we have children or not, should feel that guardianship and protection of the next generation and the future next. And so uh, this coming down the rainbow bridge into the arms of our parents who are going to receive us for this life next. And then this is called the kindergarten teachers, our parents, our loved ones, our grandparents receiving the child from heaven next. Uh, and then going home. And this is from my book, The Tear, Grandma going back over the rainbow bridge next. Um, so as a child, here I'm drawing angels, and then the one on the right is a snow angel that we used to make when we started Cedar Springs Waldorf School here in Placerville. I, with two good friends, parents in the school and teachers, they would go out and get the snow, and then the night before Christmas break, they would bring it back, and I would create the snow angel with their help. And so the next day, the children would come, and there, the last day before Christmas, would be the school angel waiting for them. And of course, nobody, we didn't tell anybody. So it was just such a joyful thing for the children to come, could do that. We did that about 3 or 4 years at the beginning of Cedar Springs, that there she was. So these thresholds of birth, there I am with a dear person. I've been able to experience many wonderful births, also the death, and this beautiful verse from Rudolf Steiner: into the Spirit will I send the faithful love we found on earth, uniting soul with soul, and you will find my loving thought when from the Spirit you turn to me with seeking love. Next. So then I came to these parents. This is Oren and Lola. They were teachers. They both knew and loved the stars, I found. Frank, can you move my picture up? It's over the writing. There you go. Thank you. Um, And so that was wonderful because he taught industrial arts to young men, woodworking and mechanics and aeronautics and celestial navigation during World War II. My mother was a homemaker, a campfire leader, and pioneered the nature programs in the San Diego City County school camps. Next. So, when I was 6 months old, my father gave me this picture I still have of a mother nurturing the children. And all my life, I loved the Holy Mother and baby Jesus, as they say my childish art shows there. And these would become major ideals and goals in my life to protect the children in the kingdom of childhood and to seek and foster reverence for the holiness of life. Next. And here is my first memory. I urge people to think about their first memories. Our home in La Jolla had this kind of little castle like thing where I was born in La Jolla on June 28th, 31. And my sister Holly was born on Christmas Day in 1934 when I was about 3.5. And so a new baby sister was an exciting Christmas present. And I remember my mother alighting from the old, what I call the old Chevy, but of course was new then, 28 Chevy, and with my father, and she beaming with joy, and my proud father, so ushering her in such a knight-like way. It was a wonderful, wonderful moment, and gave this impulse to my life of the holiness of the Christmas child and the beauty and the protection and honoring of the child. And then my work to later support that and become a Waldorf teacher of that beginning moment. Next. Now, this informs so much of what unfolded for me and also the reception I got because my sister, Mary Phyllis, had died a year before I was born. She died tragically, being drowned in a hole that they dug in the front yard for a tree to be planted. And they'd put water in it overnight, and because it was clay-like soil, and somehow little Mary Phyllis escaped from her locked backyard and fell in and drowned. So this was the what I came into my parents' arms after that tragedy of using a young child. And you can see that's her picture up there on the chest behind my parents, and and also that happens to be a shortwave radio there that my dad had made. Anyway, so from the beginning, I have a sister in spirit. And I hope this is something people will realize more where they've been, that they have a connection to the spirit world, to those who are also been born into that family. Next. And this was, again, there's themes in my life. We'll follow that, and I hope you do in your own. Obviously, horses was one for me. So in these days, you couldn't take a picture inside because they didn't have equipment. So they brought the Christmas tree out and the chair and me with my new rocking horse and grandpa. And then here's my brother on the left, and he's got a aviator cap on because every boy in that area adored Lindbergh. They wanted to be like Charles Lindbergh. Next. And so this was the welcome that I received of both concern and having gone through death and then coming in, and this will inform my life. Next. And then I have a brother and sister, my brother Jack, older, wonderful sister, both on the other side, both who crossed very nobly. They've set a high bar for me. And so next, my brother Jack, then, as I say, my mom passed when I was 48. But my brother said to me, he's dying of cancer. He says, "Sis, I'm going to die consciously." and help you with your work. I said, Jack, come on, you got brain cancer. But he did. He did. And so, you know, there's a lot we people do with dying, but they can't teach you how to die. Something's got to be there in you that's going to muster up to that threshold. So that led to my video, The Most Excellent Dying of Theodore Jack Heckelman, which is on my website. And any interest, please watch it. Next. So horses are a theme. And here I am, I'm maybe 18 months on the left. There's the first ride on the horse. I'm obviously delighted. And then this is my daughter and her first time on the horse, about a year old. So that runs in the family. Next. And there I am, various little rocking horses. And then, of course, when I can draw, I'd be a cowgirl. So this is the horses and grow up. Next, this was the longing. And so my dad did give me a horse when I was 10. I was thrilled. And then we didn't know she was in full. But my dad did and called me out the dawn of Easter dawn when I'm 10 years old and the colt is being born. And so I'm the first one to hold him. And then it's Easter. So next, the whole neighborhood will be coming to enjoy the colt. And here's my first hero after my brother Jack and my dad. It was a Mexican cowboy named Miguel. And we're going on a cattle drive, and I am thrilled. Next. So here's my horse, Julie, and this was our little dog, Blackout, and it's World War II. So that's why she has her name. And then this will be the circumstances, again, of a death and dying threshold to prepare me for later work. Next. So here's Julie, and you saw Blaze the colt. And now I'm riding Julie through the town. And the little dog is with me and usually follows right behind the horse. But then on a busy part of the street, the dog started walking beside me. And I'm calling and calling to her. And it's World War II, so the town is full of servicemen getting ready to go to war. And one came through in a convertible with, obviously, celebrating people, and just ran right over little Blackout and killed her and never even looked back. And so I'm sitting there trying to manage my horse and get her body out of the road. And a kindly milkman came and helped me. And I got back on the saddle, and he put her little body over in front of me. And I had to ride about 3 hours home. So this is my first, awakening to this depth of what it means to lose a pet and death close to you, and then literally holding her little body for several hours till I was home. And this was also the beginning of my awakening to the issues of life, which are, it was World War II. Now I was old enough to be getting news of the atrocities that were happening in the war. And then my own favorite cousin, a pilot, was killed in 1945. So again, all these, as I'm moving into the adolescence. Next. So I lived on big cattle ranches. I was crazy about horses and wanting to be a vet. This is a wild horse on the right. He was actually the stand-in for Gene Autry's horse. And I lived on that big cattle ranch. And so it was riding free, that sense of freedom that a young person growing up loves, with no bridle, no saddle. Next, please. This whole the minimal restraint on the horse, that the horse doesn't have a bridle in its mouth, that you're bareback. And I used to take Rascal out in those days, sneak out at night, go down to the corral, get on him, and go ride down white ribbon of road in the moonlight just as fast as you could go, with the wind whipping in your face. And it just that sense of joy of a magnificent animal and freedom. Next. And so I do become a cowgirl, and I go to the University of Arizona. Next. Next. And, you know, in the rodeos, which was cultural there. Next. And learned to ride and rope cattle and team tie. Next. And this is one of my daughters, who's an expert horsewoman, Vivian, working with therapy horses. So they will run in the family. Next. And this is my all-time favorite picture of me in my teaching with young children, because the mare was pregnant with the foal before Christmas, so the children could come and they could feel her belly, and they could feel the colt kicking in her belly. And then they come back to school after Christmas and they meet the colt. And this is the picture of, and just, you know, this is my love with the children, connected to nature, the cycles of life. And you can just see how wonderful it is for a small child to be meeting this beautiful little colt. Next. And then, of course, on to Michael, art in the sword of Michael, and remembering that the winged horse of thought is where we're truly free. And so this is what that's representative of, as well as the courage to follow the higher path of good deeds. Next. And then this is the end of life for our beloved horse for my son. Her name is Cinnamon. And so we're having our farewell because she's hurting now. We need to put her down. We'll bury her on the ranch. Next. And again, this is him at 14, this absolute freedom, this dear grail horse, if you could will, taught him how to ride, and there he is, and total freedom. She has no bridle, no saddle, just this glorious feeling of being at one with this beautiful horse. Next. And so these art of the Grail. Here's Parsifal on the left on Good Friday, his horse then eventually leading him to the Grail Castle. Next. And then we also had a vehicle, which was the old truck. It was a 1926 Dodge Ram. And we had it all my childhood growing up. We'd go up in the hills and watch the stars at night. And that truck has come with us, thanks to our children, up to White Feather Ranch. It's almost 100 years old, and it's still giving rides to kids. Next. So there we are. And I can't tell you how many have had the joy of riding in the old truck. Next. So here's a picture of me that is really central to my childhood. I lived in this sleepy town where mother could drop me off at the library, and I spent hours there. And I would read and read and read, and I'd read about children and people from all over the world. Next. And so it's reflected in my art from, 5 to 10. Next, please. Knowing all these other people from all these other wonderful places. Next. And next. And also in a child's incarnation, they can remember spirit world, and they can see spiritually in the early years of life, many children. And so they see rainbow colors. And this is a student. I particularly love this one because it says love. She's about 4.5. And so she's remembering of coming into, and next. So the child will express how they are feeling about entering their body. It's a diary, it's a journal of their incarnation. And so so this would be a little older, but it's kind of the general expression, the color of being, and then all these little shinings out to the spirit world. Next. And then here's rainbows, odd looking characters that kids make, but they are feeling how the world is coming into their body and what it feels to wake up. And here you'll see the one on the right is all those fingers. So that's the child is feeling their fingers and reaching out, and in this case, a little wild hair too next. And then finding these are almost like headdresses as it's feeling coming down into the body next. And as I was doing this, I found indeed that is the theme that's going to come up. So here between second grade, third grade, fourth grade, expressing again the rainbow headdress, which of course made me know that I'm definitely have a connection with the native path. Next. And so much of my art was reflecting that, giving me a deep respect for the great peacemaker and native friends. Next. And next. Okay. And so my mother was a campfire leader. I belonged to it too. I took the highest rank, which is called torchbearer. And then my daughter, Lauren, was in it as well. And it was a wonderful mantra for a child to grow up with. Worship God, seek beauty, give service, and knowledge pursue. Be trustworthy ever in all that you do. Hold fast onto health, and work glorify, and you will be happy is the law of the fire. It was a beautiful verse that resonates in my soul to this day and was a blessed experience. Next. And so here, again, native friends that I have today, work we've done here on the ranch of conferences for literally reconnecting with native wisdom, letting those who've lived it come share it with us. Next. And my dear soul sister, who I met when she was 75, Betty Castillo, I've made a video about her on my website again. Very dear, beautiful, open soul. Of great wisdom and cosmopolitan consciousness. Next. And then this is my work from Standing Rock. My daughter-in-law was there, a really seminal point in American history, and the rainbow of the spiritual from White Buffalo Woman. Next. And then ultimately with Native Prince urging retelling the story of the great peacemaker and the founding of democracy in America. Next. Also at the 9-year-old change, which we can mention a little more of interest, the world just opened up for me. And all during childhood, I loved Red Cross nurses. And I used to sew my little Red Cross onto my little towel so I could play I was a Red Cross nurse. But also then as an adult, being deeply interested and connected to the history of the Knights Templar. Next. The other, of course, was Joan of Arc, who, like millions of young girls, they absolutely loved Joan, as I did. Next. And then growing up to become, to make this a few years ago, Joan of Arc, Her Gifts for Our Time, a video. And it's precious to me because we know, as almost no one in history, exactly what she said, because she was tried, and what she dreaded most, to be tried, but her words were written down of great inspiration and wisdom. And it's all in this video I made with a couple of young people. So I hope people, especially if you have children between 11 and 15, to watch what she had to meet her time, and it's just awe-inspiring. Next. And here's some art I did of her. Next. And then I also, at that 9-year-old change, I loved Abraham Lincoln. And my teacher had me work on this mural for the class. And so I remember it to this day, the joy in doing that. And of course, then later, I'm going to be part of the teaching of American Studies. Next. And so here now, when the young person turns between 13, 15 or so, it's going to be the birth of their own soul life, separating from their ancestral line, and then birthing the capacities and all the strivings and wonders and hopes and dreams of their soul. And so, in this case, this was the cabin that my dad had built. There's a cement porch on it. I'm 15 there, and prophetically, interestingly enough, holding a white duck, which of course we will become White Feather Ranch. Next. And so my brother is going off to war. With my dad and sister and mom, we've put the name of the ranch, King and Queen Gold Mine Ranch, 1942. And I'm lying there on a sunny, lazy day, and a glow came over me and a vision that I would have 6 children. And it was filled with hope and the knowing that I wanted to drink the full cup of life, all the good experience, not investigating the dark side, but also meet many interesting and special people. And this all came true. Next. So in my in high school, when I was 14, my dad wanted me to be on the farm, which I was a while, but it didn't work out. So we went to Boston, and I boarded with a family there. My brother was in the Navy. And so every weekend we would go out to the historic places. And here I am at this Walden site of Thoreau's cabin. It's very that I got a typo there for Waldorf Pond. Next. But as we went through to all these sites of the American Revolution, it just thrilled my heart. And Paul Revere's ride, of course, he was a horse guy too, and the Old North Church. From this year in Boston, why I'm taking back my treasured artifact was a splinter from the steeple of that Old North Church there on the left that had blown over in a windstorm, and they were selling it as souvenirs. So that was, where the light was, one if by land and two if by sea. And then he sets off to get the Minutemen ready. Next. And so here's Thoreau's cabin today. When I was there, it was just a little ring of rocks. But then next, we visited the, where he was in jail and wrote his famous letter that was going to, on civil disobedience, would change the whole world. It would impact Martin Luther King and Gandhi and so forth. But as we went, this is my notebook from then. Again, how each part next, that I would see these. And this Faneuil Hall is a government building that was built in revolutionary times. I didn't know that it had been a marketplace from the beginning. So when I was there and they were hawking food and vegetables and, lamb slices of lamb off of a carcass and garbage lying here, and think, this is a national shrine. How can they be desecrating it with farmers market? I had found out as an adult it was, but that was my reverence next for all these places. They were holy places. And I went to Emerson's house, and when I could see that the Underground Railroad was a hiding place under the stairs in his house, and I was thrilled, like, oh my gosh, he's been part of all this, justice and so forth. Next, and then this is Paul Revere's house. And on the second story up there, by Sam Adams and the Minutemen, they were all planning the Boston Tea Party. That's going to be a turning point, and they have to whisper so people on the street won't hear them. So all these things just thrilled my soul. And it's so different because my classmates were out swooning over someone named Frank Sinatra. And they would get in the aisles of the theater and put their hand to their forehead and swoon and fall on the ground. And I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. I just didn't get it. But of course, they didn't get me either, this funny little kid running around at graveyards. Next. And then, of course, 30 years later, who would I meet? These fabulous people, Carl and Christine Stegman, who come from Germany when they're in their 70s to help bring us the vision of this spiritual America. Carl had loved America his whole life. And so this incredible Michaelic couple will come and inspire the beginning of Rudolf Steiner College. Next. And then I will teach there and be bringing all the goodness that lay in the ideas and ideals of our founders, even though there's many things that were not done, we know that. But it was new, and it's the only country built on 3 pieces of paper instead of a dictator or a king or an emperor, of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and the Declaration. Next. And again, the Statue of Liberty, I visited in that 15th year. Next, and was thrilled to be going up and looking out of the crown and thinking of those millions of people that had come. And this was the holding our torch, meaning freedom for all of us. So I was in awe, and they're culminating actually the last couple years in this writing of America 2022. Next. And then these were all these amazing people I was going to meet. So I knew many of these people who had been in the presence of Rudolf Steiner, and they all had a spark. They had a glow. Ilse Kimball and Dr. Knauer and Willie Suker and others, they had a glow of determination and shining into the world with such Michaelic tendency, so inspiring. Next. And then this is just, and there's so many of you out here. I've missed anybody, but it's all these beautiful souls that I've been able to experience and work with. Next. It's just more than I can possibly include, but I met some of the inspiring cosmopolitan citizens of Vedana Shiva and Orland Bishop, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who did all the death and dying work, Sabonfu Somé, Stan, Grandma Betty, and Maggie Ama. These are inspiring figures to this day. Next. And dear close friends and soul sisters and soul and daughters and soul granddaughters from all over the world. Next. And then everything from young children and godchildren and all of you, all of you that are watching, please know my joy and honor of knowing you. Next. And then this gives me such joy because Mother Teresa's Sisters of Charity, there's nobody on the planet that works harder than they do right in the most, difficult human circumstances to bring food and joy and blessing. And so it was my honor and thrill through a dear friend that they come to White Feather Ranch and have a day off. And so they gathered their Christmas tree here. They loved the old truck. And the last time they came, some of them even went on the zip line, and we were just having the most wonderful time. They sing, they do their work with joy. So my life has been filled with wonderful people, and it goes on from there.
Wow. Here I'm just following along, just like everybody else. I'm faithfully pushing the button next, and I'm trying to track your life. One of the questions I had was your parents connected with anthroposophy?
My mother found it when she was in her 40s. And she was thrilled. She'd come home. She'd been looking for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She tried to tell me all about it, and I was 16, and obviously I was not too receptive as a 60-year-old. Then I had my children, and I could see, he's right about that.
So right. when you were holding the duck.
Yeah, at that age. Yeah.
So she had already found,
Yeah.
or she came to anthroposophy already,
That
and
was
she was trying to.
trying to inform me, but obviously when you're 15, you don't want informing from your
Sure,
parents.
sure. I know, I know, I know.
These people can relate.
So how did you come to anthroposophy?
Through their children.
Through the children.
For my children, yes, they proved it to me because I had read some, and I say, oh, he's right. This is what I'm seeing in the gift of my kids, that they're unfolding these stages in consciousness and awareness, so I could track it in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And,
What was your first book that you read?
oh, I was reading, Education of the Child, Knowledge of Higher World, so forth.
Yeah.
And then into there weren't a lot of books printed then.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
We're talking 50 years ago. 60. My children are in their 60s.
So would you say that your mother had influence on you
Absolutely.
in reading?
Oh, well, she had a beautiful library. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she shared it with everybody. She always buy 2 of everything so she could share it.
Gotcha.
Because she was pioneering in her own way.
Mm-hmm.
I've made a film about her again, her life.
Oh, nice. That's on your website.
Yeah, it's on my website.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Well, good. Then should we carry on?
Well, is there questions or other things that we want to have thoughts about child development or making this relevant for other people's lives? Have you got any questions? And
I don't see any questions right now from anybody.
Okay.
And so we can just carry on.
Yeah.
Because everybody is just, I guess, just thrilled with following along. Just like, wow.
I've been trying to edit this to think, oh my God.
Yeah, take it in, try to think of other things.
Yeah. Now,
one's life. And
so this is important, Frank, because I woke this morning realizing this is a huge piece. Can you see that?
Not yet. You have to show it, bring it up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more,
okay.
more, even more, a little bit more, getting closer. Okay. All right, there.
Raise it up.
Yeah.
Okay. This is our wedding, and on the, let's see, what will it be for them? Is it on their left or right?
You're right in the center.
Yeah, and over on this side.
Yes.
Is my family.
Okay.
And my sister and brother and so forth, and my husband's little sister. He's the oldest of 6. Is the flower girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then over here on the right is his mother and father. There they are.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete was just a wonderful, bigger than life guy. And Mary Alice, his mother, is pregnant. She's 7 months pregnant.
Wow.
And she was embarrassed, but we weren't. Gordon's the oldest of 6. No, that's just fine. And mom's having another baby. I did kind of the same thing. And so they're going to be very, very important in our family community. And I wanted to make sure that you knew about them. And this is how we all began.
Mm-hmm.
And next. Now we're onto the slides.
Yeah.
On to the next.
Let me prepare this.
Okay. Then, so again, we as you'll find immediately, when you become married, it's a whole different story than when you're just a couple, because that way you're sort of facing each other and there for each other. And then when you take the step of marriage, you're not only uniting 2 families, but you're then like hooking arms and facing the world like this. And
Mhm.
then you're asking, in many cases, for spiritual blessing upon it. And then you're wanting to be doing together what more than you could do by yourselves. You're uniting in a union to help create create an energy. And as our marriage evolved, Gordon and I took that very deeply as being yeah, as you'll find out.
Mhm.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so I wanted to be a veterinary, and I was in an Aggie college, and then two women and about 100 guys at the University of Arizona. And one of our culminating senior things was to be off to the Fat Stock Show in Fort Worth and compete with college students from all over the nation. And there was about 80 or 90 of us. And so I had wanted to go to Cal Poly, and they wouldn't take women. And so then I read in the another interesting fact of the age that I won second place in the judging, and they awarded me a tie clasp. And so, but I just sweetly took it and took it home and gave it to my father. He had earned it. It's a little spur. Okay, next. So, and these were my kind of homies of a wonderful young ranching, wholesome young, full of beans guys that I was able to go to school with. And that was our trophy from that event next. And and then, of course, in my drawing, I've been drawing this tall, handsome man that I wanted to meet and be on a horse ranch, and at least in the country. And guess what? That happened too next. And there he was. Gordon Poer came into my life in my senior year. And so then next, we, to make it handy for the parents and grandparents, we were graduated one night and were married the next day. Next. And so then here we are, you could say, joining hands to cut the cake and share it, if you will. All those metaphors of taking the cup of life and sharing it, and the cake and sharing it. And so very soon it would be we'd be challenged with things, but there you are, very happy next. And going off in the old Chrysler car with, he had a box of tools, I had a sewing machine. Grandma gave us $500, and we were out in the world and felt we could just make it work. Next. So these are a little out of order, but I'll say that he was a pharmacist. So we bought our own store in a beautiful little town in Southern California named Fallbrook. And so we brought the Fallbrook Pharmacy. And Gordon would be then confined, literally confined, for almost 8 years. And the first 4, 5, 12-hour days, because we had our own business, and the state rule was you couldn't have your pharmacy open without a pharmacist on duty, and we couldn't afford it. So he was there literally 12-hour days. We're having our babies at home next. And so then we would be celebrating our birthdays there at the soda fountain because Daddy was at work most of the time. But just in those days, Gordon also, because he was a pilot, he got his pilot's license before, he soloed before he got a car license, which is pretty amazing in 4 hours, which is not very long. And so he's the old hand pharmacist, and there's a group of young businessmen in town who want to start an airport. And so Gordon has his community coming into the store for coffee in the morning, and he's the senior guy. He's the one who's been there, done that, and they're all sort of in awe as they're learning pilots. So at least he has, his compensation for being there all day. Second, next, please. And then we have this sort of immediate confrontation with the threshold that will be deep basically initiatory for both of us. The first thing is after a year and a half, Gordon's father, who was a pilot, he was a private pilot for a gas developer in New Mexico, and who insisted on flying in bad weather with his sons, who were two heavy men. And Pete objected, but the owner said no, they're going to make that flight to Denver, and they crashed, and he died just on the crest of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and died. So this was huge for us, for everyone, for all the family, driving across from California to New Mexico, listening to the news if they'd found them, and of course it was tragedy, then their family, and then there's this little 16-month-old baby, which was there with Mama at our wedding. And so now through this, we will sort of, Gordon's the oldest child, so we're taking a responsibility for his mom and her welfare going in. My dad and I helped design a house and get it built for her there in Fallbrook, where she'd always wanted to live. And so then she, as a widow now with 4 children still at home, came to there and helped work in the store. But she also helped give us a little start to buy the Fallbrook store. The other part was after many, many miscarriages and all these dreams of having 6 children, then now I find myself pregnant again. And so we stay with my mother-in-law and her mom, grandma, and I just take such good care of myself. And then at the very end, the last month, we find that the baby will die, that it doesn't have a normal size head, though it's a perfectly formed head, but the baby will not live. And so then this begins my threshold, literally birth and death, initiation, that I'm caring for over a month, a baby that is living and moving beneath my heart that is going to die. And will absolutely change my life, of course. And Gordon was wonderful through all that. But then, of course, I was devastated. Everybody else is having babies with no problem. And so this is going to be formative and important for my work, as well as the spirit of that child, obviously. Next. And then the children began to come. And what a blessing. They just came tumbling in, 5 in 5 years. Of course, twins made it go up rather quickly, but there they are, the first 5, and then the 6th one 9 years later. So there indeed were the 6 children. Next. And it all came true. And how blessed. And they've just been my teachers, and the first community, family community with all that went with it. Next. And have made us central part of our marriage and life together. Next. And this is what their father wrote in 2010 on one of our anniversaries. He said, "We have been blessed by our children. As a group, they are the finest kind of people. They are good, caring, and responsible, so that I am very proud of them. With divine help, we have a beautiful family." And so that was just the center of our life, was our children, their education, their environment, along with the community work that was happening too. Next. And here we were in 2010, I think. And they have their partners now. They have their own children. There would be 14 grandchildren to date, 12 great-grandchildren. And so it's been just such a blessing to have all these amazing individuals in our lives. Next. there's the group of the grandchildren. Next. And these are some of the generational pictures. Next. And so Rudolf Steiner comes into my life with my mother gives me knowledge of higher worlds that will become the work that I work with intensely. And with the children, I could see the wisdom he was talking about. And so the more I could experience and see, and the more I trusted Steiner. He said some pretty far out things, some really long German convoluted sentences. Wait a minute. And then these things that I sure couldn't test. But after I saw the penetrating wisdom of his knowledge of the awakening of consciousness of the child and the ages and stages, then I said, I'm in. Next. And then at 36, I had a very special moment with the children. We'd been with a group of young professionals studying the Bible. We read the Bible through. I can't say we all understood it, but we were devoted parents and wanting to deepen our spiritual path. And then one day I'm outside the house, and I have this voice, "Are you with me?" And it's like, okay. And then I'm sort of busy and wandering around, and it just persisted. Are you with me? And so it was almost like I kept waiting, and almost I remember walking around the house kind of thinking maybe it'll go away. But it persisted. And I realized it was a higher call to follow the Christ and a divine path. And I gave it some thought. I was like, oh, do I want to give up my I-ness to a higher source? And so it was not all sweetness and light and rainbows and sparkles, but it was a serious question of commitment. And eventually I said yes and never regretted it. Next. And so this is for our oldest daughter's wedding. Our oldest son made this beautiful redwood cross for the family. And so on one side, the cross, and on the other side, the rose cross, which has been there for all the thresholds in our family life. Next. So they were good years, and they were intense. As you can imagine, they were hard. We were working and learning, but committed to the kids, their welfare, and we were striving and loving and making mistakes and picking yourself up and trying again. Yes. Next. Yeah. But they've taught us so much, and they were such a lively crew and such amazing personalities, and they still challenge me to this day. Teasing mom was always a big project in the house, as you'll see a few later. Next. And then Gordon loves flying. It's just absolutely in his soul. And so I began flying, first of all, just to be with him, and soloed in this 65-horse Taylorcraft, actually when I was pregnant with the twins. Next. Who are very buoyant personalities. And so these were one small family. And then at the end of his life, in the last few years, we were able to fulfill his dream with our son and others to build an airplane of our own. And that is what we did. And when Gordon test flew that plane, it was one of the most exciting days in our life. And his life is like the Wright brothers. Is it going to take off? Is it going to work? And I didn't include pictures, but just know that was such a big piece of it. Next. And so then I got my pilot's license when the twins were 3, because obviously I was home raising them. Next. And the kids used to wear these put this on for fun. I am a flying Poer, and it had the call numbers of both the planes we flew. Next. And then we did what he'd always wanted to do. And so we had what we called our great falling out, which was on our 30th wedding anniversary. In those days, you didn't go tandem. So you were dropped there alone. So that was exciting. Next. And the kids said, "Oh, yeah, I did include it. Great." No, the kids were all waiting on the ground and they'd taken this huge banner and they say, "Happy anniversary." Or happy 30th, mom and dad, as we're sailing down. So here's a picture from the first flight. And as I say, I was a pilot too, but boy, my heart was in my throat when my son was on the mic and Gordon's down at the end of the field, Victor Sierra, 33 Victor 337 Victor Sierra, ready for takeoff. And it's like, oh, and of course we're all on the ground cheering and whooping. Next. And so then after skydiving, which I did, you saw that at 85 with my two wonderful grandsons, Nathan and Thomas, they give you a T-shirt. And so I just wrote it over. It's a T-shirt says you only live once. No, not so. But you only live by love and life. And this is just how it is. What we love, we get back. And it's just work for me. If you love life, then it can be amazing. Next. And so here again, you can see I'm obviously very happy jumping out into nothing. Another threshold experience. And this was very sweet because Cedar Springs, the school I was the founding teacher for, was about 30 some years old. And they were doing the Michaelmas play that I'd written in the second year of the school. It had been done almost 30 years, the same play. And they gave me a bouquet of roses. And so I tucked one into my harness. Normally they fall right out in free fall. You're going hundreds of miles a minute. But this one did not fall out. That rose went all the way down with me next. And as I say, it's just that sense of no gravity, of freedom, of quiet, of the whole world. It's kind of like as close as we can get what it must feel like to incarnate when you come down, you're still spirit before you become matter. And so for me, it was just this glorious sense of freedom. Next. And so that's what I'm trying to share with you. Wherever you can have this experience, if you're a very quiet person, maybe it's just this wonderful inner freedom of your soul opening up and just flying free and uniting with the divine in the universe and the potential and the genesis of life in the universe. So however that is, climbing a mountain, for a lot of Americans that live so much in our will, why we obviously it can be through activity, but it can also just be through great quietness, like an Emily Dickinson of this quiet, introspective, enormous freedom of soul. Next. So at that point, then we meet Carl and Christine Stegman, and he's giving lectures, and we become part of a group. An amazing night on February 22nd, 1976, and we found Rudolf Steiner College. But it's not that. This is only after a year will become that. And so my family were painting the sign next. But first, it starts out as the Sacramento Center for Anthroposophical Studies. And I was able to design it kind of like a chalice of light with the Michaelic sword there. And then Carl writes this, can you move my photo, Frank, so I can read this? You there, buddy? Thank you. So this is from Carl. The faculty circle wished to place a spiritual seed of the beginning of the 3rd century of modern American history. For the first time in America, a group of people with consciousness of the contemporary reality tried to point the way to a spiritual America, to connect with America's history. That happened on a small scale as we were conscious of the fact that we stood at the beginning of a deeper understanding of America. And so, nevertheless, it was done. Next. So, this was our first classroom that my son, 16-year-old son, and I worked all summer on. And then we're joined by others. And behind us, you can see Christine had given $5,000 of her hard-earned savings to make it happen. And then behind us, you can see the pattern in the door skins that we bought using, the most inexpensive we could and still beautiful. And on either side of the window, there were those patterns in the wood, like two angels, and then one under the window, like the United States of America. Next. And this was our first faculty then of those first council. As we came together in the second year, we donated all the first year's work of those who would be founding and carrying out the college. Next. And I would become working in early childhood and the spiritual America. Next. And then celebrating these two remarkable people that had come here to inspire the destiny of America. Of course, he's written the book, The Other America. Next. And then I would also then bring the Great Peacemaker as the very first of every America course for the founding of America, and then rewriting with Native encouragement the story of the Great Peace. Every 8th grader in America should know this story. Next. And then I had the privilege of working with one of the leading doctors who was the founding head of Herodeka College, the Center for Anthroposophical Medicine in Germany. And we worked together for 18 years, bringing the care for the infant and young child. Next. And that was the college in its heyday in the 1980s, of students from all over. And these students so loved the college. And when it was finished in 2015, there was a loss of a spiritual home for many, many people. But we were so grateful for the years that we had been able to all work together to consciously nourish and support many people who would become Waldorf teachers, now teachers of teachers throughout the United States and more. Thank you. Next. And one of my privileges there was through a young student to make a connection with Sabonfu Somé, who is the leading voice of African spirituality. She's passed now, but we had an amazing conference together, and she works a lot with death and dying and grief. Next. And my last class there, as you see, very cosmopolitan. And so we did the big adult version of the children's story that we tell in kindergarten, of what it's like to be a human being coming from the cosmos through the planetary spheres, picking your parents, your home, your language, your timing, your destiny, your mission. Next. And then at that time, we were having our 25th wedding anniversary, and we had many gatherings at our home. This was one of them. And there's Richard Lewis in the middle, who will be doing our 25th ceremony from the Christian community next. And so here we are as a family then, and here Gordon and I had this deep experience. we had all these people, 80-some people, and we were singing Climb Every Mountain and this lovely ceremony, and the children all taking part in it because they were big enough to do so. And it'd been so amazingly difficult to get ready. We wonder, why are we doing this? And then we do, and it's just amazing. And so we had a little silver teapot that had been restored that belonged to Gordon's grandmother. And so the children were down in the kitchen, never before or after, preparing us breakfast in bed. And so Gordon and I were upstairs with suddenly some unusual time on our hands we never had, like to just sort of be there and bask and in the wonder of the community blessing that we just participated in and had been so meaningful and joyful for us. And then we had again a credible moment as a couple where it just kind of descended on us both, this deep realization that if human beings don't celebrate the festivals of life, if they don't turn to the spirit world for the great thresholds of birth and death and festivals of the year, of celebration and marriages, that the social cultural life will literally cease to evolve. It was that strong. Both of us had that this is important, and we need to take this responsibility that we as a couple, as a family, can be a sort of anchoring point in our community. By our commitment, we can help be the place, as you would say, where everybody could come, where there was, that's how I was raised, of course, hospitality, inclusion, activity, community. But in that moment, we really began our commitment as a couple that would carry us for the rest of our life, as you'll see in some of his statements. Thank you. Next. That was our pledge. Yes, I say that. And the kids brought us a wonderful breakfast. Next. And this was the grand old home where it all happened. It had been a nursing home, 3-story home, with all the wonderful things that happened there. Next, this was in Fair Oaks. Now, here was what the culture of the home looked like most of the time. Here was like huge meals and Sunday meals and families and friends. Next. And by this time, we were also taking care of Grandma, and Gordon's mom had passed. So they were incorporated in our home with his brother, who had had this severe car accident when he was 18 and was paralyzed then. He was in a coma for 6 or 8 months. And so Ray, his younger brother, would be a part of our life. And here's what was happening. There were always guys wrestling in the in the foyer. Next. Or reconstructing 4th of July with the empty fireworks, playing 4th of July over and over in the backyard with the neighbors. Next. Or building underground forts, which they would have with their walkie-talkies or whatever they had at the moment. Next. Or on cars, and there was always a whole hub of young people out there in the garage doing amazing mechanical things and building an old Volkswagen to go to the racetrack and so forth. Next. There's part of the infamous cruise. And next. And then our children loved to play jokes on us, especially as they started going overseas, and they would always play a joke to return, not tell us they were coming. This one was quite touching because it's my son in Norway who will be faced a number of illnesses, and we thought that he couldn't return home that year because of his health. And then the whole gang got together and dressed up as these crazy Santa Clauses. We looked out in the yard, and there was a bunch of guys or people with black sacks going ho, ho, ho. Like, what's going on? And then this is the moment we go out, and our son takes his beard down, and then we see that it's him. And it's obviously, that was just amazing. So that was the kind of pranksters that they all were. Next. And of course, they loved the motorcycles, which their dad had before them. Here he is, a young man. And so that was part of the culture. Next. And they were a bunch of athletes. They were active kids. One of my babysitters, when they were little, I used to have to hire two babysitters. And they said, your kids don't, they climb everything. They don't walk around anything. And you're right. And so one of our twins, Vivian, ran the Hawaiian Ironman twice in the early days in 1043. And believe me, that's not shabby. And then her daughter, twin sister Mary, climbed Island Peak over there by Everest. And both of them climbed Kilimanjaro and Machu Picchu for one. And so they've been adventurers. And Cameron is here, who built White Feather Ranch, along with the others, running Epi's Great Race. And as we speak, he's preparing for, I don't know how many years he's run it. He was only missed the fastest kayaker by 8 seconds last year. So he's determined to beat that next. And then our youngest son, Colin, who's there, number 20. Now, he was, no, next, please. Next, Frank, there. And I had him when I was 43, so you can see how he can jump. That obviously he was faster than me, so that was quite a challenge to raise. Granddaughter Mia, state swim champ, granddaughters and daughter-in-law, marathoners, grandsons, so forth. A wonderful, lively, engaged, active bunch of, group of amazing individuals. Next. And this could be a typical afternoon of our home culture of, there we are nursing my invalid father and the neighborhood kids, and our kids are putting on a puppet show. Next. And then this would again be a classic sort of community front porch scene at the Poers. You can see the brother-in-law in the wheelchair in the middle, our invalid father at that point, new babies, horsing around. This was just, beautiful, rich years in the center of our lives. Next. And then we gave Christmas plays, and we'd have 80 people there. Anybody who came could be a shepherd or a little angel, and we sang, and so they were epic events. Next. And all the little ones. Next. We always have a Madonna out of the community. Here's Christine Stegman's 75th birthday. It was so lovely. And she was such a gracious, beautiful being, my Gaelic soul. And so it's just lovely seeing her there with her crown of flowers and the community gathered around, children bringing her gifts. Next. I just want to report a lovely part of a blossom just fell on my computer as I was talking about Christine. Our family took care of the famous Dr. Knauer. And he had been in, of course, the first course with Rudolf Steiner. He was famous all over the world. And he was in Stanford University dying. And our family said, we'll take him. We brought him home. The community gathered to pull the money together and support us. And we took him in for about 2 months, during which time we celebrated his 86th birthday. And he recovered. And so he went on. Other community members took care of him. And he went and he died in Sri Lanka, a magnificent soul, and bridging East and West. Next. And then at the ranch, we had the chariot. Next. And I just showed this one twice. Next. And then Richard Lewis, our beloved Christian community priest of deaths and births and baptisms. So I pulled together a celebration for him at the college because, of course, he was one of the founding colleagues. Obviously, there was a group of founders. And he loved music and he loved singing. And but I thought it would be religious music. Richard, what would you like to sing? And then he said, a capital ship. And I was like, what? So this is an old sea shanty. So he and my husband sang it together. Capital ship on an ocean trip was a lark and wind will fly. No wind that blew dismayed her crew or troubled the captain's mind. So we had a joyful, the community came together and we sang and we danced and we, performed and he loved it. And I was so grateful. And he would die about 4 or 5 years later, but this was a highlight moment for him and all of us. Thank you. um, yeah. Next time. So activism is in there because we've got to try to protect the planet, and crazy things are happening, and I'm down on the streets with other activist friends in Sacramento in the late 90s, walking the streets and looking up at a huge police on horses, mounted horses with big shields all over them, standing guard. And the Secretary of Agriculture is out here for a big conference to sell GMOs to the entire world. And I'm just thinking, we're just grandmas. We're just walking in the street and telling you, please don't poison our children. And then we're walking. It's just crazy, as we know. Next. So this would be, again, carrying the signs, pleading for sanity with the governing powers next. And of course, it's not there. But also there in the center, dressed up as a salmon, to object to GMO fishes, along with my other, saying no, trying to protect these the food, literally the source of good nature life on this planet. Next. And so then also during that time, traveled to Oklahoma, and they were building a community compost pile, had about 100 people, and that was way exciting to create that. And then Gordon and I always brought the Virginia reel afterwards. I'd play the accordion, he'd lead the Virginia reel. And so festival and work and taking care of the earth. Next. And so when I went to Cancun in 2003 to protest the World Trade Organization, I met Jeffrey Smith. He's one of the leading GMO experts on the planet. I met him again in 2019. There we are at the Capitol, and brought him to the college. So these were some of the apex work of my work at the college. It was bringing him there next. And this was a food rights film festival that I was able to organize for 2 or 3 days, showing the leading films on food issues in this country and food rights, and inviting, as guests, all the organic farmers in the Sacramento area. Next. And so there they are, these wonderful people who are caring for the soil, caring for the food, and sharing and caring with the whole, please support your farmers, support your people who are growing the food that we need, of healthy food, so we can think healthy thoughts and have healthy children. Never more needed than right now. Next. And then we were privileged to have get sponsored a Healthy Children rally here at White Feather with 3 of the leading pediatricians in the country. Next. And here we are at the barn and up in the corner, Nikki Chirac and Michelle Perro. Michelle Perro, a leading voice right now for all the issues going on with the vaccines and with the poisoning of our children through their environments and food and so forth. We were doing that in 2019. Next. And here's Nikki and she's at this hearing given 3 minutes to testify against the bill that will destroy the doctor-patient relationship and trust, and make the state the arbitrator for deciding medical vaccination exemptions. It was incredible, incredible. And there were hundreds of us there. And, we were all trying to protest. So it was an amazing, rigged event that has led to where we are today. Next. And here's Nikki in testimony. This woman, I dedicate this work to Nikki. I would not be here talking to you now. She saved my life in 2023 in February. Absolutely. As did another fabulous holistic doctor, Dr. Kelly Sutton, in 2013. And so I have literally been right to the threshold of death and been saved by two amazing, dedicated doctors. And for which, as I talked to her yesterday, to say, Nick, it's all your fault. That's why I'm here right now. Next. So it's freedom, friends. It's freedom, the sense of we have the right to autonomy of our body, souls, and spirits. We cannot be owned. And that's the kind of freedom I'm fighting for and want everybody else to have. Yes. Next.
Wow. Well, it's interesting that you bring up Kelly Sutton because she just had she was just recovering from a heart attack.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I known Kelly Sutton back when my son was just 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
She cared for him, and then we kind of lost we lost connection there, but we finally met once again last year in New Hampshire during the Mystic conference.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really it's really nice to see her, but it was sad that shortly afterwards she had a heart attack.
Kelly is one of our frontline Michaelic doctors. We're in a battle of medicine for this planet, and she's been on the front lines ceaselessly. She lost her license in California for protecting children, and it's followed her to Massachusetts. She's now doing everything she can with education, with everything she's got left. So I can't say enough about her courage and her example for our time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, I guess the activism is just another thing that I forgot to mention in the beginning. You are quite an amazing person.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I mean, what a family.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're all, just as their dad said, conscientious, show up people, and strong-minded individuals.
Mm-hmm.
so it's being a group of strong individuals. Yes. I see my battery is getting low. How much will I have to finish this off? I'm getting a notice, which is going to be a little complicated to hook it up, but I can if I need to.
Can
Okay.
you plug it in, because we have another slide deck?
We do. Okay. Well, you talk to people for a minute, and I'll see if I can get it plugged in. Yeah. Kenda, can you bring me an extension cord in my thing, honey? Thank you.
So Sylvia Paluzzi had mentioned that she is in Antioch College, getting her master's in Waldorf education.
Okay.
And
then it's
one of her classes
in the basket.
She has to bring someone who has inspired her in her work, and she chose you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sylvia.
Which And also, there's, I guess people were wanting to have your email as well.
Yeah, if you can you give them that, Frank, or do you want? Do you just want me to say it, or how do we?
Yeah, it's, I think,
Yes, I welcome emails
yeah.
because my last project here is given my assignment with my last near-death experience when I shattered my femur last August is to increase our connection to all those in the spirit world, especially those who've died tragically, as they are all over the world in our time, but more so to create joyful stories and events to welcome the souls that are coming back to Earth. And so I would love to communicate with anybody who's got a joy story to tell of their special moment in their childhood, and to be sharing these things so they can know there's love and goodness and wonder and amazement here on the planet.
Let's, let's revisit that right at the very end.
Okay.
And then you can give out your email and then explain to people, again, the joy stories.
Okay.
That's really important because it is what you're doing right now.
Right now. That's
And you've had me think about some joy story of mine. It's difficult. It's difficult.
yeah.
I mean, there's some there, and I don't know if they're joyful. And
But
maybe,
you'll find one. You'll find one. It's pretty amazing.
yeah. So, I think we should go on, and then we'll, yeah. So,
Okay.
so let me share. Let me share, the screen again, and let's.
So now we're celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary next. And that will begin a rainbow event next. And it's an amazing blessing from all the community next. And this is when Gordon sums up our marriage intention. He spent about a week thinking about this. And then this is what he read. In the name of Christ, we pray that the good from this marriage gives hope for the future and serves the community of life. Amen. Next. So this celebration of life has been important for both of us, all of us, and our great joy to celebrate with community next. Then in starting Cedar Springs School in 1989, I was very, wanting to make sure that we served the community. So we did a trash-a-thon of the parents cleaning up the streets of our town and then taking the children to the nursing homes so that they could bring joy there next. And these are some of the classes that my next. These wonderful, beautiful young souls that we had such fun together in school next. And again, always wanting to connect the children with the animals and the earth next. This is Cedar Springs School that came in 1989. Next, I was founding teacher. Introducing them to Michael, shining as the sun, calling to everyone, follow me with courage true. The golden hearts will bring love to everyone. Yes, next. So these were always the big Michaelmas part of the year, getting the little knights ready for their courage and making their own swords next. And the gardens, each child had a garden. Here we're sifting compost. They said, oh, it's so fluffy. They wanted to jump in with the seed babies next. So this is the core of the teaching for me, putting them in touch with the magic of a whole tree in a tiny seed, the magic of the earth, the elemental world. Next, um, they had their own little gardens, and of course we planted radishes next, and then we would ask the radish, for permission to pull up the radish next, and ask the root gnome. Say, the root gnome, can we take your radish home? And all the elements. Yeah, next. So this joy, again, I have lots of that in my video on joys of a Waldorf kindergarten teacher. But putting them in touch joyfully with nature next, with I love this one because I say kids and kids need each other, and they're just perfect with uh, resistance next. Uh, and again, the class is always with the animals next, uh, and bringing them to this reverence for life, which is such a big part of our calling. Angel of God, who's guarding me, be thou a bright star above me, be thou a smooth path before me, be thou a good shepherd behind me on this sun's day, tonight when the stars are shining, and forever next. So giving the child the reverence next, and trust in the spirit world, in the goodness of life, in the beauty of nature, and the holiness of the natural world is truly our calling now, to be joyful and reverent for the sake of the children. We got in 1984, we came to White Feather Ranch next, and began our whole work and community building here. Our sons and family built, with friends, built the barn next, and and Gordon restored a wagon, so we had the carriage and the horse next, and uh, the pond is a very, all special 50 acres we have here now. Next, as a sanctuary retreat where we do community work and special work with people deepening their spiritual work for whatever their work is, whether it's early childhood and so forth next. And then with my mother's death, when I was 48, the home death work began. And they say, most people don't say, I want to be an undertaker when I grow up. But this is what she brought, is branching out. And this is our son made her casket. The children all participated next. So those influences, and also the birth, the deaths of the fathers and so forth, were part of that. I'd go around the world, not world, but I was to Canada and Costa Rica, and helping start home death movements so that people would know how to meet death in their communities. Here I am in Costa Rica next. And then the community work at White Feather, and overnight for our 35th next. Our Thanksgivings were legendary, and we would have 50, 60, 80, many for their very first experience in this country. And then next we'd have talent shows and sharings after dinner, and the Virginia Reel, and just sharing the richness of community life with people from all over the world. Next. And then giving rides on the old truck. Next. And then dancing. So this was we danced, we celebrated with all our groups, children's groups, school groups, 4 or 9 years old. Everybody welcome, jump in, you can do it. And we'd always end with, the saints come marching in. Yes. And that was our joy, Gordon and I, to see people loosen up, smile, get cheeks pink, panting from a dance, and just share in camaraderie, and and wonder of being together. And so that was our fulfillment in our community work here. Next. And this is a many, many conferences. This is Spirit Rising with Orland Bishop. Next. I can only show you a few, and the reconnecting ones with Native friends for all the restoring Native wisdom in our curriculum and other. Next. And then our oldest son passes the threshold in March 2013. So the deepening of the threshold work and the grief work and being able to bring more to the community in terms of understanding. Next. And this is a group from China, that their whole little tech group is visiting the US, and while they're here, why their business is taken down in China. So right from our dining room, they are working all night long to restore, and they will work around to protect their business, which was theater tickets for most of the theaters in China. And this is our triumph of the next morning. And one of the beautiful moments is I asked Min Fong if I could tell them a little bit about St. Michael, because it was at Michaelmas. And she said, sure. And they just listened and they just got it. And then Gordon picked up a jar of white feathers and came and just poured them in the middle of the table. And they all took one and took it back to China. So this building bridges to hearts and souls in other countries with this universal understandings of these deep value meanings of life has been one of our thrills in being here. Thank you. Next. Women's conferences, death and dying conferences. Next. A early childhood, teaching puppetry, plays. Next. This was our response to COVID. We did not distance. We still had people gathering and giving plays and living life. Next. And next, conferences, youth conferences, very special one in 2012. Next. This is the youth conferences who had their genesis here in 97 and 99. Next. A group of elders and friends honoring the native rocks that are here. Next. And this one, death and dying, have a good die. Next. And then all these 40 years of community home death work and consulting, and still do today to help people. Next. And saying farewell to our dear grandma. And as I say, all the others that we had helped and encouraged and supported in the family. Next. So this was those thresholds, and now comes the big one, my husband. And so Gordon was a pharmacist and a pilot for 50 years. Next. And so he was a guy's guy. Everybody loved Gordon. Next. And one thing, we did haul our own trash. I think that's a very important thing, that we clean up after ourselves. Next. And he loved the babies. He was a family man, and it was mutual. Next. And he hugged everybody. And when my husband was 25, he read a story of a man coming home from the war who had no arms. And his greatest regret was that he could not hug anybody. And so at that age, Gordon made the resolve that he would give hugs. And the little kids from the Waldorf school say, you just feel better when you're sitting by Grandpa Poer. You just feel better. So he hugged people, and it was really the wonderful protective, dad, grandpa energy when you got hugged by grandpa. Next. So the last picture taken of the children, before our son passed next. And this is my birthday on June 2018. We've just had the blessing, and then we go to the phone rings. And next, the phone is telling us that he's had a negative test. And he looks at me and he says, "Is this it?" And I said, "Yes, honey, it is." And so then it's all decided. Everything that you might wonder about, who's going to die first, when, how it's going to be. And then begins the process. Next, we go to the beach. We drop out of the medical system, go over with the kids that are all there and can go and have 2 or 3 days. Grandpa reads all of his old stories and make everybody laugh. We fly a kite together next, and gather and celebrate next. And then we were going to have a big party for our anniversary. And I said, "Shall we put it off?" He said, "Absolutely not." So this will become his celebration of life. And he planned it, which he didn't usually do. So he wanted bluegrass music and hot dogs and hamburgers and celebration and games next. And so that's what we did. And it became then on July 16th, we celebrate his life next. And it will be games and relay races and next. And then Gordon calls the Virginia Reel. He has cancer of the throat, mind you. And he calls it. It's amazing. Next. His voice was big and booming and strong. And here he is, this great guy, just, a look of his mission fulfilled. And he met it on his own terms. And there he is with our daughter Lauren and his son Cam next. And there we are, 65 years. It's been mission accomplished together next. And here we are. If you click that one again, we're singing our love songs to each other. Can you click it again, Frank? I don't know if the sound will go on. But anyway, we had a love song that we sang together with Someone Like You, Apollo Good and True, and we were able to sing it. And the community was there for us next. And he was able to sing it next, yeah. And there we are. So the farewell, he's going to go home next within a short time next. And then 3 days later, Cameron brings a plane for the last time, and we fly up over the Sierras next. And Gordon takes control of the plane. He's the pilot in command, flying with his son. We fly over the ranch for the last time next. Look down on the ranch, and which we've done from our own little plane that we created together next. And on July 31st, just within 1 month of hearing the news, he crosses the threshold at home with his family. All of this in his story called Grandpa's Big Blue Chair next. And his son made a beautiful casket with a propeller on it next. The beams of light shone on it as we had our festival funeral here at the ranch next. And so now I would say we complete the rainbow circle, that rainbow of coming down the rainbow bridge, and the ones that I experienced in the little feathers that I would draw as a little child. And so here at the ranch, we made this next 450 feet of rainbow silk next. And so this then went to next, and that was an adventure next. And this would go to the International Youth Conferences. This is in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1970. All the young people walking down the hill, coming through the arch there with us next, and into the circle next. And next, making the rainbow next of rainbow next, the rainbow of life next, on the planet, on among people, among the others, for the world. This is how can we enclose them in the rainbow of the higher knowledge and love next, um, and taking care of it. And it went all over the country to many celebrations in many cities. Here is the how we will conference of, and this wonderful phrase of elderberries and Dr. Koenig, a knighthood in our time whose members do not ride through the darkness of physical forests, but through the force of darkened minds. They are armed with the spiritual armor of an inner sun. It makes them radiant, and out of them shines healing, healing that flows from the knowledge of humanity, that a spiritual being, they must create inner order, inner justice, peace and conviction in the darkness of our time, so we can shine. Next, so the rainbow theme next is a closure. I've loved the Holy Mother, Sophia, all my life, tried to honor her next. In the art, the angel child, which guardian angels, which many children have grown up with, I'm grateful for next. And the Virgin of Guadalupe, as she gives the roses to Juan Diego, this beautiful icon for the Western world next. And these are some of my latest work in the last couple of years with my fading eyes and trembly hand. But I'm hoping that we can get these up and out. This is from the fifth gospel, the Luke Mary meeting Elizabeth next, and the double initiation of the Christ with John the Baptist and the Holy Mother also initiated next. And these are some of the latest in February. And the right is the one of Mary coming to the temple, meeting Simeon, the old priest who wanted to see the face of the Messiah before he died, when he held the baby, and reverence her mother Anna behind her, Saint Bride above her, and this phrase, a sword will pierce your heart, as he tells Mary that so the sorrows of life pierce the Holy Mother's heart, that it may be in so many pieces, that there will be love and mercy for everyone, everywhere. Next. So again, the rainbow, the children working from heaven, that we're going to be welcoming back into life, the journey to the top of the mountain and the higher self. Next, St. Francis, talking to the birds, sending the message in all four directions. Next. And this on the left is my somewhat tongue-in-cheek response to Leonardo, that all the development of the human being, physical, astral, and so forth, and the higher self. And so women need to accomplish everything men do, but they've each got a child on each leg. So, but again, the chalice of the rainbow, and create a chalice of beauty and truth, and I would say freedom, for the festival of life. And my dear sons have made my casket, so it has the rose cross, and that's been an adventure, and I encourage other people to consider that. Next, rainbow grandma, and next, and then the delight of having the mother of all piece of art be a little 7-year-old making her version, little Scarlet. Isn't that wonderful? You're a beautiful little mother of all rainbow. Next. And so many of the conferences that we've done to honor the holy protection that we have, that is so there in such a quiet and merciful presence if we turn to it now. Next. And in my kindergarten teaching then, having the rainbow, the children come down during their story next from heaven, and then they would so often, as they would put their feet on the floor, have this wonderful look of this little girl, Leah, who's now a midwife, and looking back up to the heavenly source, as we say, and then the angel child came to earth. And the church is so beautiful when you see this yes to the remembrance of their birthday story. They, a divine spiritual being, have now come down to earth. And then they would look to their parents and just run across the circle and jump into their arms. Next. So these are the hope that you have been inspired for your journey and impulses and things that have wanted to unfold for your life. And I am beyond grateful for each one, and that I've been able to be here to help and hopefully continue to help the families, the children, all the souls of us now at the threshold. Next, to land, to be here, to say yes to life and its goodness and richness and beauty. Next. And then lastly, this was for my 90th birthday. A group of friends came together. We made this next sacred temple of healing and gave many healing rituals to adults of sound and beauty and light and tone and fragrance and touch, just to re-welcome the beauty of their souls onto this earth to do their task. Next. And so even I got it. It was wonderful. Next, we would often tell next their birthday story. Next. Yeah. So if you can go back to that, no, I guess the sound won't play. I wanted you to hear the wind chimes, but they're very magical to accompany this spirit of sort of renewing life in the fullness of our life. Next. So I close with this next, honey. Next drink. With this picture from our 50th wedding anniversary. Next. And this will, again, these hopes of my husband and I to build and foster not only our wonderful family, but community family, world family, spirit family. Next. And 60 some years. Next. And so this picture tells the joy of all my life striving. With my husband and family, we created space and joyful celebration for the community. Our son Gary is lifting up the family cross, or the rainbow, in front of the family rose cross for our 50th wedding anniversary. And our native friend Stan has woven the central hoop that he's carrying that was at the youth conference. And the rose cross stands behind us all. And the little child is out there in the middle of the circle, following in our footsteps and loved by the community and surrounded by a rainbow of joy and love. Next. So we thank you and try to urge you to know these deep and incredibly vibrant relations that go on after the person is back in spirit. If we can foster that connection, which is part of my work. Not long before my son passed, I had a dream vision from him next, and he said, "Be strong, take my heart, we'll light it from the other side." And this is what our loved ones do for us. Stay strong. Take their hearts, hold it in your heart. They will light it from the other side. And these are our great host of people, along with all the divine powers that are there for us now. And so I close with this piece of art next, which is Again, hi, Gordon. Next is Pentecost. And this is the community our hearts strive for. The moment when the Holy Spirit touched the Holy Mother who had received it and made it available in that birth space to all the disciples as the Holy Spirit spread among them with common understanding of the awesome divinity of each one and the beauty of what they can create in community and commitment to life. Thank you.
Wow, that's really beautiful. What a wonderful tribute to your husband,
Mm-hmm.
who must have been, who I'm sure was just a fantastic person. Um, gee, what a life. I mean,
Were we lucky? Were we lucky? Look what we had. We were so blessed. We
yeah,
worked hard. I mean, it's crazy. We had our troubles. We had our ups and downs. We were independent. Of course, we went through it all.
yeah,
But we ended up. That's where we ended up, and still are connected. And yeah, so that's what I want to leave people with the wonder of their own lives, no matter how complicated, how complex, how convoluted. There's a spirit is working, and you are the only beautiful, unique individual that can fill your space on this planet. Yeah, that's what we hope for.
sure. So, so it's been as long as we need to have it. Uh,
Yes,
for you. So you're
sure. You told me that.
93, so I hope people have kept with you. I mean, but if they have, then um, I would like to finish off with what you had just gone through medically, which is you fell down and broke your hip.
I broke my pelvis in February and almost died in 23. Had an amazing experience of being saved by Nikki then. I was on hospice. Then I fell in August and shattered my femur.
Yeah,
And so thinking, oh my gosh, why am I still here? And but then I'm pretty tickled to be here now and determined to do everything I can to help people connect with spirit and have courage for our incredible intense times we're in. And yeah, so that's what we're doing.
and but there's one particular thing that you felt you needed to take up.
Right, which is helping people. I'm trying to write joy stories of happy, enlivened wonder moments in the young child's life, and so that we can read and share these for the children coming in, and it's amazing the beautiful stories we get. So please communicate with me by email if you want interest in further conferences or gatherings at White Feather on all these subjects that are of deepening for our time. I don't know how the ranch was going forward exactly, but it's a sacred and beautiful space, and we want to keep gathering those here that want to be here and be part of it, or growing food, or growing community, or growing life, or sharing life. So I'm happy. Please, anyone who's get in touch with me, Nancy Jewel Poer at gmail.com, and we will try to create more community.
And are you creating any events at your place?
Well, we're what wills to come and who wants to be part of it. It's all out there in the unknown.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, for those that are attending online on YouTube, I just put up Nancy's email address. You should take that now because once this is over, the YouTube video will be taken down and be placed on CFAE media, and you should find her video there. But I want to thank you, Nancy. Just a beautiful, wonderful time.
Well,
Traversing through 93 years of life. Wow. Just so much community building. And it's interesting. My mother started the Seattle Waldorf School and also Golden Garden Waldorf School. And when you mentioned that Cedar Springs was started in 1989, that was when Golden Garden had closed its doors. So I was glad to hear that something started when her efforts ended.
And if I could add too, it is now in a new form. It's under a learning center so that we can be a freedom school. And we have wonderful parents who value freedom of body, soul, and spirit, and committed teachers. We need a couple of more, but that we're carrying a beautiful inner core of teachers carrying deep Waldorf education. Yeah, so they are under a new name, but they are creating Waldorf education in a beautiful way.
Wonderful. Well, we should end it there. Nancy, thank you very much again. I see thank yous from many people online. So, and I'm sure people will leave their gratitude towards you on cfae.media underneath your video, which I will try to post there by tomorrow, if not today.
Okay,
for everybody that hasn't joined us live. Just a wonderful, wonderful life, and you and I are going to continue our relationship to the bitter end.
Well, hope it is. Well, let's hope it's awesome. And thank you for carrying my books and things, because there's very few outlets for them. And that's what we want to share. Watch anything on Sacred Incarnation, and just sending love and gratitude to every person that's ever been blessed my life.
And this is your recent book.
It is. That was last year.
Yes. And it is wonderful, and people can purchase it either on your website or rudolfsteinerbookstore.com.
Yeah.
And then your other one was America 2022, which is fantastic. I mean, I read that and wow, incredible. So, Nancy, thank you again. Bless you, bless your life. And I hope you have many more to come with your family and friends. Hopefully that's not a curse.
No, but looking forward to it.
Yes. So thank you everybody for coming. I hope to continue this with others. I do have another interview in mind for someone who lives in Korea, who is very much connected with Waldorf education in Asia. So, and then hopefully at one point we'll have Harry Salmon back again to talk about Ukraine. He was like our first to be on CFA Media, but to wrap this up again, thank you, Nancy. And your life was anything but poor.
You're right about that, my dear. Blessings of all.
Everyone, take care and have a blessed Sunday tomorrow. And we'll see you back here again soon. Take care.